All right, everybody, here we go on Chapter 3, Chapter 2.5, key issue number 2, okay? Just a heads up on the reading, everybody. What you're going to see is a lot of graphics. You're going to see some migration patterns of people in the U.S. on a global scale, and you really need to look at these, okay? The graphics are going to help you understand how people are moving, why they're moving. So we're going to get into some examples in Canada, Brazil, China, Russia, and we're just going to go ahead and get started here. So interregional migration. What you're going to see here is a lot of people moving into different areas for economic reasons. They need to make more money. And if the money is in another location, they're going to go. Okay, so with the American frontier, what you're going to see is people being enticed. They're going to, be baited. If you guys ever seen that commercial with the fisherman with $1, I got you $1, and then the girl, tries to go grab it. That's what the government's doing. Hey, if you move out west, come get this land. We'll give you a couple of, acres of land and a mule. Okay, so they're enticed to go out west. That's why they go. Okay, but now presently, there's more jobs in urban areas. People are going to be moving from rural to urban. That's their drive to move interregionally. Westward expansion contributes to this thing we call center of population gravity. I'll get into this because it's a little bit difficult to understand. All right, so what we see here is on the East Coast, 1790, we have people right after the American Revolution, heavily populated on the East Coast. All right, we're going to start to move more and more west as time progresses. So what this center of population gravity is, think of the United States as a flat plane, and it's almost like a teeter-totter. What you're going to have is that center point right in the middle, where it's going to be your pivot point or your fulcrum. I'm not sure what it is, but one of those, right in the middle. So what we're going to try to do is, as we move more and more west, you're going to be able to balance the United States more in the middle. All right. So the more and more we move west, the more even our populations will be. We're not going to have everybody just packed into the East Coast like a bunch of clowns in a tiny smart car. We're going to have people spread out. They're going to have more opportunities to grow and flourish, and they're not going to be just centered in one spot. Right here is a great infographic, and this is recent from 1995 and 2010. This is interregional migration in the United States. So what we see here is almost like cartogram arrows. The thickness of the arrows will really tell us a lot about the populations moving. And this is in your book on page 85 on the right-hand side. You can see in 1995, a lot of people are moving. However, 2010, people aren't really moving too much. Lines get skinnier, especially in this northern area. Okay, just compare these two. So with the Midwest, what we see here specifically is there's more people wanting to move south than there's wanting to move north. What you guys need to do is understand the general flow of the United States populations. Where do people want to go? Where do people not want to go? There's a lot of people that want to move south. Okay, so know a little bit about the migration patterns of the United States. Some great reading opportunities on page 85 that shows different time periods. And when we start to cross the Appalachian Mountains, when you start to rush for gold and move more and more west, and then a lot more people in the 1950s to 2010 into present, a lot of people are moving south. All right, and then getting on to migration between regions and large countries. If you guys want to, there's a map right here of this, but it is on page 86. If you want to look at that while I explain this, that would be pretty good. So what you're seeing here is the populations that are very west westerly. All right, so you're going to see people in Moscow centered in like the city centers. However, what the government of Russia did is they said, okay, we need to get a lot of these people out of here. It's really packed. How about we send people more east and more to the north, where we have a lot of great resources, where we can start factories. These people can have opportunities to grow and have more money. It's freezing up there. Who would want to go up there? Yeah, it's cool to get a new job, but I'm not going to go freeze my butt off just, so I can help out the Russian government. I'm sorry. I probably wouldn't do it either. I totally sympathize with these people. I would just stay in the city center where it's already happening. You don't have to go and, guess if you're going to have a job two or 3 years later. All right. So that's just one example. We'll get on to the other 3 international examples. However, on page 87, really crucial part for you guys to look at here is the Trail of Tears. Andrew Jackson, the Indian Removal Act of 1830 is going to be centered right here. For the benchmark we're going to be doing, and for you to fulfill that, you'll have to know some classic examples in U.S. history, and present possibly, of forced migration patterns. So this would be a great example. We'll go over these after we get done with our Syrian refugee crisis, but just so we have a little bit of information before we're going in to that discussion that we have. Please read that. It would be very beneficial. Here's the map that I showed you. If you need to pause and see a visual, perfectly fine. Migration between regions in large countries. So with Canada, what you're going to see on the bottom of page 88, you're going to see people moving more and more west. We have a lot of people in the east, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Ottawa, Quebec. So you're going to see people moving more and more west. All right, that's just the population pattern that we see. And these people are moving to Alberta, Saskatchewan. Go ahead and take a look at that. There's a little blurb about that on page 88. On page 89, what we see in China is a lot more people moving from rural areas, where there might be more agriculture, into bigger cities. They're moving from west to east, or west to south, and they're going into places like Hong Kong. All right. Moving on to Brazil, what we're seeing there is we're seeing people moving from the external borders, so Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. They're moving from those outer areas into the center. As you move closer to the center, it's going to get that more orange, okay? And then as we see around these edges, there might be some blue specks on these outer edges. However, that interior is heavy on the orange, which would then tell you there's a lot more people moving in. All right, moving on to, and there's the map of China. Here we have intra-regional migration. So this is going to be a great example in the Industrial Revolution. When that began in Europe, you're going to see more trends of this in the United States, of people moving from rural areas into urban areas. You can't get up in the morning and you start work at 8 and go, hop in a car in 1800. It's going to take a while to get to work, so you need to move closer to work. And then in 2010 and present day, I think that's more of just people's preference. They'd rather walk to work, or it's just, an easier, lifestyle for them to live. And then this move to urban areas is more for money. Okay. It's to get the better job, get the more money. So then you, can't buy happiness with money, but, you can, not have to sit in traffic like I do for an hour, because that sucks. All right. So intra-regional migration, this is going to cover, the idea of people moving out of the cities, and this is going to talk about people have the money, people don't want to be in the cities anymore, they're going to go into suburbs. They want their own driveway, they want a sidewalk for their kids to ride their bike on, they don't want, the increased crime possibly. However, this does have a negative effect. What you're going to see is a lot of wealthy people in the city centers moving out of the city center and taking their big bucks out into the suburban areas, such as Kettle Moraine High School area, Wales, and Oconomowoc. What you're going to see is there's more money for schools, better schools, and now that money is left. Key example, Milwaukee. Milwaukee Public Schools isn't doing so hot because a lot of that money left and they moved into these suburban areas. Great example here, and I'm going to get to it in the next slide, and we're going to talk about counter-urbanization. So what happens here is, I'm just going to use these two numbers. 2.6 million people are moving from the suburbs into the city. However, there's 4.8, 4.9 if you round up, people moving from the city to the suburbs. So what we're going to see here is this idea of counter-urbanization. We go back here, the city cannot be like very urbanized because there's more people moving out. Okay. So about half of the amount of people that are moving out are moving in. So, that is going to be, counter-urbanization, and that you can read more about an example on page 91, bottom right, bottom left, on that page, and it'll give you a couple of examples of different places where counter-urbanization has occurred, with the Rocky Mountain states, Colorado, Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming. This is going to be the last slide, and this is a pretty quick screencast here. Just the idea of the percent of people moving. You see from about 1950, just before that, until about 1987, you have a lot of people moving. Okay, but then once we get into the late 80s, people are staying where they are. You might see families pass on houses. They don't move as much. People really, they like where they are. Everything is kind of settled. There's not a lot of big developments happening during these times. Maybe we'll see populations, start to move and shake as we move on. But as of now, people are staying where they're at. All right, so next screencast will come out for key issue 3 here soon. Hope you guys enjoyed. Keep reading and take great notes, and I think you guys will do great. All right, thanks.